Hello and welcome back. If you are new to the channel, I make one game a month. Turning 2D games into 3D can be very time consuming, and being a solo game developer makes things even more difficult. So today I'm going to show you how I turn my flat 2D game into something called 2.5D, but without using 3D objects. I will fake the 3D view by using some clever techniques to render the game as if it's a 3D game. When you use sprites, there are two things to consider. First, the camera is orthographic, so it will not show you any depth at all. Any sprite rendered close or far from our point of view will be shown with the same width and height, the same size. Second, each sprite is like a billboard. This means it's facing towards the camera. These 2 points are very important for our objective. There are many games that fake the 3D view by using parallax effects, for example, by rendering the background at different movement speeds. But we are not gonna do that. I want, for example, a smooth floor in which I clearly see perspective in motion. So our first problem is how to show the floor in perspective. This can be easily achieved by changing the camera. Instead of using an orthographic camera, I switch it with a perspective camera. Rotating the camera and moving it, I can make the flat frontal image look like a floor. Now that we have a floor where our world stands on, characters will be rendered still in the old way by using a sprite batch. But we are also going to use a second camera, a perspective camera instead of the orthographic camera. That will enable us to give sprites depth. With that depth, we can make sprites look bigger or smaller depending on the distance. So we have now floor and depth position in the world, and we are using up to now two separate sprite batch calls. There is one last thing we need to add to achieve the illusion of 3D, and that is the depth of objects. There are two ways we can solve this problem. The first way is to render real 3D objects that will make things very easy with the perspective, but it will be harder to match in matter of color, illumination, and pixel look on screen. The second way is to fake it with another set of sprite drawings. Let me show you for example. These columns are just plain 2D sprites. The side view of each column is also sprite by adjusting the width of each side. We can fake the perspective view of each side. By calculating how far the object is from the point of view of the camera, we can stretch the texture at some extent, and once it is close to the center, I do not render the texture anymore and start rendering the other side. This will only work as long as the camera stays parallel to the world. For this type of game, this is a perfect solution. Everything still handled in 2D with sprite batch, but looks like it's rendered in 3D in many ways. Depth and perspective is visible, and by adding a few more things to give even a better illusion, I added these lines on the floor. Those are straight vertical lines, but thanks to the perspective camera, it looks like a 3D object was used for the floor. When I add more details to the floor, each sprite is also rendered with the necessary perspective view. This technique will work as long as objects are vertical or flat objects. For other type of objects that have round shapes or non-vertical aligned sides, this effect will not work. It will be very hard to make it align for non-flat surfaces. After this, it's quite trivial to add additional effects like blur in the background like this, and also bloom on top, so I can add glow effects to the game. I'm working now on illumination and light effects to provide a little bit more of mood. If I have enough time, I will add smoke effects also. Hopefully you find this interesting and apply some of these techniques in your games. Thank you for watching and see you next week.